This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone and welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
And I'm Naked Steve.
Naked again. No Rob this week. He is having a week off because he's got something wrong with his outer rim or something. I don't know. He will be back next week. So it's just the two of us, but we've got plenty to talk about. So should we get straight into it, mate?
Yeah, let's do it, mate.
Okay.
I have got hiccups, but I will be all right.
Steve's got hiccups and a cough.
I ate a Rathtar earlier and it's gone down the wrong way.
Not a whole one.
Well, I like my mum always said, always chew. Yeah. Make sure you finish your Rathtar in your mouth before you swallow.
Chew each piece of Rathtar 92 times. Okay, good news is we don't have anyone passed away this week, which is nice.
Yeah, no one died.
Everybody's still with us. That's really good. We do have another little thank you section. I wanted to just give a shout out to someone that started or liked our Facebook page. Amy Westhoff Sansone, I think that is. It's really nice to see people jumping onto Facebook. I want to try and grow the Facebook thing a little bit more because there are some things we can do there that we can't do anywhere else. Live and what have you. So, okay. Reviews. Finally, I've managed to solve the problem of reading the reviews on iTunes. I was having a bit of a problem with this last week, but fortunately I've managed to uncover a couple of iTunes reviews. So, we had one from somebody named 13amp who left a review on iTunes to say, if you like Star Wars, it's simple, you'll like this. Great host, great topics, some real interesting theories. Go on, give it a listen and succumb to the talk side. I really like the idea that...
people?
Sorry?
What is wrong with these people? They like us.
No, they should like us. That's
hiccups and all.
That's the hiccups and all, yeah. No, that's really cool. I like the idea that we're a side. Like you get the light side, the dark side, and the talk side. That's really cool.
That is good. I like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Honestly, 1981 said a good bunch of knowledgeable and intelligent guys with accents that will lull you in. Well done show. Glad I discovered it. Thank you very much. That's really nice.
I think that is Corey from the Tumbling Saber podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's that accent thing. We don't have the accents. They've got slight accents.
They're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they will have accents to us. They'll be just as appalling. I mean, appealing.
Appealing. We are. They are really great guys. And they're very supportive of us. They've always given us a shout out and a recommend on their show. So I'm going to recommend that if you enjoy what we do over here, you will enjoy Tumbling Saber. So get yourself onto...
Yes.
iTunes and dig that one out. It's great stuff.
They're all much for muchness, aren't we? We're all, just trying to make our lives a bit more interesting with a bit of fiction, and it kind of works.
Yeah, because we all do slightly different things. So there's a little bit there for everybody, I think.
I think that doing this, because we're like 25 now?
This will be, I think this is 22.
So I think, and I'm not joking around here, I think I'm becoming force sensitive.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because do you remove all your clothes with the force before you start recording?
That's my problem. I could never use the force because I can only become force sensitive when I'm in the nude. So I can't go, oh, hold on a minute, Sith Lord, I just need to strip off down to my kecks. It ain't going to work. And even then, unless I take the pants off, and that's not trousers, by the way, that's British pants.
Yeah,
that's
elf pants.
Underwear. Unless I take them off, I'm never going to be able to use the force. So I'm not going to do the crushy power or anything.
Yeah, we don't want you doing the crushy power. Because we know you don't think that's a bad thing.
All
right. We had a comment on our YouTube channel as well from Force Brick Studio. They left a comment on there saying, this is the first of your podcasts that I've seen and I loved it. Definitely made a subscriber out of me. Thought your ideas were really interesting and I'm looking forward to your next videos. We will hear, that guy's name is Chris from Force Brick Studios. We're going to hear from him in a little bit as well.
Okay. He's talking about the idea that he thinks were interesting is about the crushy power, I can tell.
I'm not sure which one it was. I think it might have been the Kylo Ren lightsaber one that he was...
He left I think it was probably something quite interesting rather than my inane drivel.
No, not at all.
I'm pressing this mute button like every seconds.
Yeah.
I pick up. It's very, a word to the wise out there. If you're listening to this, when you're drinking a glass of water and somebody asks you a question, as you swallow, don't answer the question because you will inhale the water and have hiccups for 24 hours.
And right before you record a podcast.
I'm sitting here thinking, right, we're ready to go. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I've got massive hiccups.
I can always drop you out of your track in the editing process. So don't worry about that.
Okay, thanks. That makes me feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, I'll take you out for great
disabled at all.
Great big sections. Just a quick word on these reviews. I hope it doesn't seem self-serving that we're reading these things out, because the idea of this is I just want to try and build a dialogue with the people that listen to the show.
Yeah, I mean, once we have 1 million subscribers, we won't be able to,
Well, I mean, we'll be recording like an episode every day, but it's I just think it's really nice that people take the time to reach out to us.
Yeah.
That we take the time to acknowledge it, and we're getting a lot of content out of this. You'll see from the 3 emails that we're going to go through tonight, that people are engaging with us and what we find interesting, and they're throwing us things to talk about. And it all starts with these reviews. Once we're engaging each other, it opens up this dialogue, and the idea is we want to talk Star Wars, so it takes two sides. There's us.
It's all about the listeners.
Yeah, it is.
And it must be horrible, and you've got like either a channel or a podcast or something, and you've got loads of subscribers, and they're asking hundreds of questions every week, not to answer each one. It must be horrible when you're all about the listeners.
I imagine, yeah. But we'll do it. We'll be as practical as we can. I know our first listener email, which I'll get to in just a sec, is a guy who sent in 2 questions, and I've broken it in half because, firstly, there was a lot to talk about, and secondly, I think the second half of his question, Rob will have something to speak to, so we'll put that to one side and we'll jump into that next week. But for now, let's get to the first email, which is from Ads.
Yeah.
He's at Ads Hillier on Twitter. He sent us some comments previously. He's a really cool guy. So his email says, hello lads, enjoying the podcasts. I know you like the odd question to sink your teeth into, so I've been thinking about Anakin/Luke's lightsaber that called to Rey at Maz's castle. It's obviously fell when Luke fought Vader at Cloud City, and the visual dictionary states that somebody salvaged it from the city's industrial depths. I always assumed that Luke went back for it. I think Luke or another, at his instruction, like perhaps R2-D2, eventually gave it to Maz. She knows whose lightsaber it is, and she tells Rey and later tells Han. Han seems very surprised at seeing the lightsaber and appears to recognise it. He asks Maz how she came about it, and her response is, "It's a good question for another time."
Yeah, that was
so. Ad's question is, why is Han so surprised at seeing it? And he speculated as well. I wonder if the lightsaber was passed originally by Luke to Ben Solo whilst he trained with Luke at the Jedi Academy, before he turned to the dark side and became Kylo Ren. That would fit with Kylo Ren's Vader obsession, and this may explain Han's shock at seeing, as he's seen the lightsaber with his son so many times. Ads goes on to say, perhaps when the Knights of Ren attack the Jedi Temple in the flashback, Luke reclaims it in a fight with Kylo Ren, and thereafter leaves it with Maz. So maybe Luke left it with Maz. In the final fight between Kylo Ren and Rey and Finn, Kylo Ren actually says, that lightsaber belongs to me, like it actually does, rather than he's just speaking about his inheritance/destiny. So does Maz know who Rey is? And if so, has she been left the lightsaber by Luke deliberately to give it to Rey? Because she used to be a young Jedi, perhaps? The visual dictionary again comments that she collects treasures to protect them and believes that it's a relic from the past and someday may make a difference in the future. So he goes on to say, sorry, this was only meant to be a short question. Honest Gov. Nice bit of Cockney in there for Corey. Keep up the good work. So to break that down.
They're very good questions.
That's an awesome question.
We like it.
How if we boil this down to one single element,
Well, yeah. I mean, firstly, I'd like to say it's just reminded me of how we waxed lyrical prior to seeing the film, and most of our discussions ended up in some way being related to the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? We had all these different theories about how it got there, and really, it was just at Maz's castle. That was it. You never really found out.
Yeah.
And it laid sort of all our theories to waste, didn't it? Really. But this has kind of raised a few interesting points there.
Well, I think it's fascinating because I'd not really, since, like you said, we'd had discussions about this very thing at the start when when this film first went into production and we knew the lightsaber played a key role. We were bouncing these theories around. So now I think it's really important to address that again now, because there's a big hole in The Force Awakens. How did the lightsaber get from Bespin to being in Maz's possession? Do you have any ideas, Steve?
Well, first of all, I love the idea of the industrial depths of Cloud City. My feeling was, I always thought when I was young, well, if it would have ended up going down one of those sucky tubes, which were actually at the side, not at the bottom, weren't they? If I remember rightly, you kind of get sucked in.
Yeah, I think there's a number of them, isn't there? They're in little blocks of a half dozen, aren't they?
And I guess they're just like garbage chutes, Flyboy, and they just open and it ejects out into nothing. But obviously, this didn't. It must have found its way into some sort of, I think, like the garbage compactor in the Death Star kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere like that, and was kind of sitting there. How did it get? I mean, God, how he said there, I think Luke or another at his instruction, like R2-D2 eventually gave it to Maz. Well, yeah, how did R2-D2 get it? That's the interesting thing. Somebody must have gone looking for it, because you wouldn't have someone go, "Oh, a lightsaber. I'll give that to somebody it means something to." It would have had to. I would like to think Luke went back after Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably didn't. And there's a question from somebody else later on that this kind of pays into. I think Luke would be less concerned with that lightsaber because it's gone for all intents and purposes, and the Jedi aren't really big on the whole possession thing, are they?
No.
So perhaps he wouldn't have had any interest in that weapon, and Rey's interest in it was really about it calling to her more than her going looking for it.
Well, she didn't want anything to do with it, did she?
No, and I'm glad you said that, because going way, way back to the early days of the production, when we learned that this lightsaber was going to be a big fixture in the film, there was a rumour about how it fit into the film, and it goes right back to when Maz was still being called Rose. That was the character's name in the early stages of development, and Rey was being referred to as Kira.
Okay.
And it was said that Rose would help Kira have a vision, and it's not the vision that we saw eventually in the movie. It was more about the path the lightsaber took. So she saw somebody salvage that from the depths of Bespin, which is obviously what Ads has mentioned. And then you see that lightsaber pass from owner to owner. So. And every time it leaves somebody, it leaves a trail of devastation. So somebody would get that weapon, then they'd use it, and obviously someone would be hurt or killed. And then I remember hearing that somebody else used it and it destroyed a village because of fire or whatever. It was just this trail of devastation every time the lightsaber passed hands. Now, it was enough. Almost cursed. It was enough for me to write something asking the question: is Luke's lightsaber cursed? Because everybody that's used it has fallen foul in some way, including Han, who used it in The Empire Strikes Back very briefly and ends up in Carbonite. So that all grew out of this early rumour that the lightsaber was salvaged by somebody, not an important character, just a randy. And then it passed from person to person, and every time it did, it left a trail of devastation. And that's what Kira, who would later become Rey, she was revolted by that and didn't want anything to do with it. And that
she's more pure. Maybe that proves that she doesn't have any dark in her.
Maybe, but this was the early stages of that script, of the story being developed. So
I wonder, if you talk about Maz's palace or temple, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, that's full of reprobates and traders and mercenaries. I wonder if it didn't find its way, and she felt it because she's force sensitive in the bar, and then approached the person, and then took, bought it off them or traded for it.
Yeah,
and that's how she got it.
And
but it found its way kind of deliberately, like these things do. I'm trying to think of another film where something sort of always turns up, and
it's like it's like Indiana Jones's hat, where he can't get rid of it, can he? Every time it comes off, it comes blowing back to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be key.
Lando. That's the other thing I was going to say. I mean, Lando knew Luke's hand was chopped off. Yeah. He obviously put two and two together. He would have done. He's back in charge of Cloud City, or is he? I mean, we never really find out if he passes the saber, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Or maybe he said, "Look, I want that lightsaber found. It's fallen down there. Go and have a look." But then why doesn't Luke have it in Jedi?
Yeah,
it does. There is a period where it's sitting there, and no one's found it. Obviously, quite a lengthy period.
Lando wouldn't have gone back to Cloud City
the Empire
before Jedi, so it would have been left there until after, I would imagine, after the fall of the Empire. But I like what you're saying about Maz's castle being this wretched hive that are omnipresent in Star Wars storytelling, aren't they? And maybe somebody just came into possession of this thing and they realised what it was. Now, there is a thing, I don't know how much of this is canon now, because obviously there's a big shift with things being reset, but Palpatine made a lot of Jedi stuff illegal.
Yeah.
So they were, certainly in Rebels, the Jedi are being hunted, and the Jedi Knight in Rebels has to keep his lightsaber in two parts.
Really?
So that they can't be seen. It's sort of one part's kept in a certain section of his belt, and the other part looks like it might be ammunition for his weapon, for his blaster or whatever, And then he pulls them out and he clicks them together, and suddenly he's got a lightsaber. So all of that stuff's contraband almost. So it seems to me like somebody would have come across it as it was making its way from one person to the next and causing all these problems. And they would have realised what they've got and given it to Maz and said...
That's what always makes me think... Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, not at all.
We were talking the other week about the difficulty of making a saber and those crystals, the kind of crystals.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me realise that I know a Jedi can whack one together, but I don't think they're easy to make. Otherwise, like we said, you'd have every youngster in the galaxy making sabers and lopping off limbs left, right, and centre, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they are easy to construct.
No,
I don't think the crystals are easy to come by.
And I think they have to use the Force when they're doing it as well.
Or, yeah.
So it's not like they can just use
like
tools.
to align the crystal or something.
Yeah, to hold the crystal in place and things.
Or maybe the crystals are common, but a pure one, kind of, what do they call it with diamonds? The where the actual no fissures in it or cracks.
Oh yeah.
Pure ones are incredibly rare, or maybe they're tiny. You just can't do anything with them. But maybe a large enough crystal that hasn't got any flaws. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredibly rare, and you can't find them unless you're force sensitive. Maybe you pick up the vibration of the crystal.
Yeah, well, the crystal's call to the Jedi. Which is why the youngsters in the Clone Wars, they have to go and find their crystals because it's time for them to make their lightsabers.
Like a rite of passage.
And they go in there over all these weird and wonderful experiences within the Force because of the connection they make with their crystals. And that's what we see in The Force Awakens. It's the crystal in the Skywalker lightsaber that's calling to Rey. And that's why she has her vision, because she makes a connection with the Force through that. So
God, there's a film there, right there, isn't there?
Yeah.
About these crystals.
And this is what I'm wondering about. Like, the answer to Ad's question might end up embodied in a scene in Episode 8, because we know Maz is going to be back in Episode 8.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a vision or a flashback or a story being told about the path of the Skywalker lightsaber? And is that why because we've already seen a photograph from the production of Maz on set, so we know Lupita Nyong'o is going to be there performing that role in the mocap suit. So is that what her story responsibilities are in episode 8? Is it just about telling this story of how the lightsaber got to her? But I think my speculation at this point, to answer Ad's question, would be that it made its way from owner to owner, as people couldn't get rid of this thing quick enough because it kept getting them into trouble, and eventually it ended up in Maz's castle because somebody had said, I found this, and it's because it's contraband, and she put it in that vault where she seems to have a lot of stuff.
And I don't think Luke wants it back. He's not like, oh, my saber.
No.
I'll use that now. I think he's, look, we've said this before and we've touched on it before. He's thinking, great, what the hell did you bring that thing here for? Yeah. I wanted to get rid of that, kind of thing. It's brought me nothing but trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to know what what saber he's using now.
If any,
yeah. He might be retired.
Well, he definitely had the green one at the end of Jedi, because I went back and checked after we'd had that conversation about how many he'd left the Death Star with.
Because they do swap at one point, don't they? But we've spoken about that.
Yeah.
So
he'd end up.
And which one did Vader had the red one on in his hand? And did you see if it fell down the shaft?
No, you don't. You don't see it clearly. But I think it's reasonable to suggest that it, in fact, did drop down the shaft because of where they are on that little bridge, which did have handrails on it, which is unlike the bridge in Star Wars. But
the only place you don't need handrails when there's Jedi around, because they can just go, "Oh, I've tripped, but I'm levitating."
Yeah.
And there they are, health and safety working at its best. The 1981 Factories and Work Act, whatever it's called.
Right. Do you want to take this next email from Chris at Force Brick Studios?
Yes. Thanks for those questions. We haven't answered them all,
Ed.
but we're going to have another read and maybe bring some of those back in a later episode, because there was a few more questions embedded in there. From Chris at Force Brick Studios. Hi, guys. First of all, I would like to say how much I enjoy your podcasts. I find them very interesting and great to listen to. Thank you very much. Although I've only watched a couple, I think they're great. Well, that is wonderful to know. I also wanted to ask you some questions about The Force Awakens to see your thoughts and opinions. Do you reckon he's Force sensitive? He wants to see our thoughts. I'm a bit worried now. That's not a good start, is it? So my first question is, why did Captain Phasma lower the shield so willingly for Finn? Actually, that's a really good point. I've kind of thought that when I watched it last. The only reason she seemed to have was that she had no guns. Oh, she had guns to her head, and I find it strange that a high-ranking and loyal First Order officer would betray the Order just to save her own life, especially when she had so many other options like refusing to cooperate or sounding the alarm. She must have known they would all kill her anyway. So why lower the shield? What do you guys think? Should we answer that one first? Do this in Well, I did think that there is something missing about Captain Phasma. Do you not think? She's quite a shallow character.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said this before, haven't we? And I wonder if that she's going to be fleshed out a bit in episode.
She will. There's definitely going to be more. She's going to be used to a greater extent, I think, in episode 8. And I think a lot of what they planned for her was left on the cutting room floor from episode 7.
Yeah.
And even her origins, really, if you watch the additional material I've got the iTunes version in the movie, if you watch the additional material, it does kind of seem that she came out of a pretty shallow place. Sure. That it was a costume design and they were ready to... It was initially a design for Kylo Ren. And they decided not to go that way. And then Kathleen Kennedy saw Phasma's uniform and said, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, that was this chrome thing." And she said, "We've got to use it." So they just stuck her in. And even though I think Gwendolyn Christie's fantastic, and I think there's a lot of promise to the Phasma character, they really did underutilise her in The Force Awakens.
You could have them removed and it wouldn't have any effect on the movie whatsoever, would it?
Pretty much.
Is that sort of incidental?
But what do you think to this question from Chris? Do you think, why would she buckle so quickly?
I'd like to think that it was intentional and there was some deep meaning to it, but I honestly think it's because of the cutting room floor thing.
Yeah,
I think perhaps there was other stuff in there that built her character and other, stuff that they used as leverage against her, and it just got lost in the way. I don't think it's anything more than a bit of a bad
that's
edit.
interesting.
I
'Cause
I honestly don't think. Why else would they do it? Because like Chris said, you wouldn't have somebody that high ranking give up so easily. They would, they would try some way of
yeah, I don't know.
raising the alarm.
But I hadn't really given it a lot of thought, to be honest. I accepted it at face value in the movie, and everything at that end of the film was moving at such a rate, I didn't really stop to think about it. But since receiving Chris's question, I've been mulling it over, and the answer I came to was simply that she's a coward. And I kind of started to think of like the First Order seemed like a kid wearing the dad's suit. There's like the kid wearing the Empire's suit. And all of these people, they're not quite ready yet to step up and become the big bad because they're not willing to sacrifice themselves. They clearly don't believe in whatever their mission statement is. Kylo is just swanning around like this petulant teenager, and you've got General Hux, who's really overdoing it, and he's almost going to blow a blood vessel if he screams much louder on that parade ground. And then you've got
no
Phasma.
one believes in the cause.
No one believes in the cause. You got Phasma there, I think, when she's got a squadron of troops around her and she's barking orders. She's the big I am, but they're pretty much like bullies. When they're on their own, that's it. She doesn't necessarily believe what she's doing. I mean, any one of those resistance fighters would sacrifice their lives for the greater good and for each other. And even Finn, by the end of the movie, is willing to put himself in enormous peril to try and rescue Rey, or to at least help Rey, because she seems to rescue him as much in this film. And Phasma just seems to me like she's not dedicated to anything. She's not courageous. She's a cowardly bully.
I wonder if there's an arc in there. Would you think Phasma might actually sort of join the rebels next film and take off the uniform and be kind of a different character altogether? Maybe she had something to do with Finn's escape. Maybe subliminally she wanted him to go.
Yeah, maybe that would be an interesting direction for him to take it. At the moment, I'm seeing her path similarly in a similar light to Vader's in episode 4 to 5, where they've both had a massive failure. If you think about Vader at the end of A New Hope, when the Death Star's destroyed, he just flies off. He has to go back to the Empire licking his wounds. I think she's a bit like that now. She's failed, and it's either going to be an experience that galvanizes her or it destroys her.
But we do know she's definitely an 8.
She's definitely an 8, yeah.
Okay, because that would have been. I bet she was kind of, as an actress. I always say actress. I'm going to say actress because that's my old-fashioned thing.
Yeah.
As an actress, I wonder if she was like, oh God, I hope I end up in 8. I wasn't in 7 a lot. It didn't kind of work because it's such a shame because she is so talented.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad. I think that because she's in 8, they'll have to really commit to the character.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think they'll double down on her this time and they'll develop her a little bit more.
Okay. I don't know if we really answered that, but we kind of all in the same boat. We don't really know. I think there's something missing.
I think it's well rounded though. I think there's something to be said for your answer that there might have been something lost in the edit there.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty much convinced that she's just a coward.
Yeah, and everyone likes to think that everything in this film, every little nuance in these films is intentional, but sometimes it just isn't. And it just happens, and we kind of probably read into it a bit much, but that is the whole point. That's losing yourself in another universe.
That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. The second part, my other question is, why doesn't Luke come to Starkiller Base to save Han and stop Kylo Ren? In Empire Strikes Back, Luke senses when Han and Leia are in danger, and so he goes to save them. It's logical to think he would have sensed the same thing for Han on Starkiller Base. I get that he is upset about failing to train Kylo, but his friend's life is at stake. I would have expected him to rush off and help. So why then does he stand on the island and do nothing? It just puzzles me. Bloody good question. Thank you for reading my email. I really appreciate you taking the time to read and hopefully answer my questions. So thank you, mate. That's really good.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Well, I mean, that's. Do you want me to go first on this one?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Before I hiccup. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I hadn't thought of that. I think possibly we see these nice cuts of them going into hyperspace and then getting to Luke. But I think in real life, I was going to say there, I think it took ages to get to where they were going from Alderaan or in A New Hope or wherever it was. You're talking days, if not, hours, if not days, if not a few days to get somewhere. It's not like you take off from a planet, you go into hyperspace and you're there in a few seconds, I don't think. I think there's a lot of.
I think you're
otherwise,
right.
Everyone would be whizzing off everywhere, and there'd be no trade routes because you wouldn't need traders.
Yeah, it's not time travel at the end of the day, is it?
No,
it will take them weeks to get from A to B, and that's why these people are away for weeks at a time. I think Rob touched on this previously as well, that it troubled him a little bit that the end of The Force Awakens showed Rey sort of jump in the Falcon, hit a couple of buttons, then land on Arc 2 and jump out and meet Luke, and when it could have been days and was most likely a long period of time. So they don't really break down the timeline very well in Star Wars movies because the people that you're following, they're important to the story, so it keeps the narrative moving at a nice clip.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice what they did in A New Hope because you got the feeling they travelled for a while.
Yeah.
They were chatting and, that in the different scenes, they'd move positions. You got a sense that...
Yeah, and Luke was training and they were playing the chess as well, yeah.
Well, even when Finn and Rey take off from Jakku in the Falcon and they kind of, within moments, they're sitting there and Han and Chewie mop them up. And I think that there is a kind of issue there with the way, the edit didn't quite make it seem as long. But I do think that Luke probably did sense what was going on because he had that look on his face when Rey arrived, didn't he? That he already knew. We've spoken at length about that. I think he had no means to get there. Perhaps he is stranded on there with no ship.
Yeah, it could be. We saw a couple of A-wings when the princes visited the Pinewood Studios set. So maybe Luke's got a ship, I'm not sure. I think there might be something a little bit deeper to this, and this is what I mentioned in the answer to Ad's question when he was talking about Luke's lightsaber. And what I was getting at was, I don't think Luke was interested in that lightsaber because he's a Jedi Knight now, so possessions mean nothing to him. And I would imagine that also with this whole thing about losing Han, he's above that now because he's a Jedi Knight. So it's not that he doesn't care about the fact that Han was in danger, but he made a mistake previously in The Empire Strikes Back. That wasn't the right thing to do in Empire. He made a mistake there.
And because Yoda sort of has a go at him, doesn't he?
Yeah, it cost a lot, and it could
have. Then sorry to interrupt you, but wasn't Obi a Jedi Knight? Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
When it's like a million voices cried out and suddenly died in pain, whatever he says.
Yeah, he can feel stuff.
It affected him. He wasn't able to let that wash over him.
No, I think that's, he's feeling sort of, obviously he's feeling those deaths, and it was the injustice of it that motivated him.
And the amount of death.
Yeah, but it's not like he saw that coming and he tried to stop it. I mean, he would have tried to stop that because obviously that's the right thing to do.
Sure.
But with Luke, he wouldn't repeat the mistake he made in Empire because that wasn't the right thing for him to do because he put himself at risk and he was the only hope. We need to remember that framed in this thing, there's not an endless supply in the Star Wars storytelling. There's not an endless supply of new Jedi. Luke's hiding now. I think we've decided through our discussions on this podcast, Luke's hiding on Arc 2 because he's a resource and he's there to be used to train Rey. So he couldn't go running off to try and... Otherwise, Kylo's going to be going around threatening everybody with his lightsaber, trying to tempt Luke out of hiding, isn't he? And Luke's got to be above that now and think, I need to stay here. I've got a job to do, which is wait for the next New Hope and give her the training she needs to be able to restore balance to the Force. that's why he couldn't. Even if he had the opportunity, if he had a ship and he knew what was going to happen with Han, he just couldn't come out from hiding on Arctu because he needed to rescue his old friend. He's playing the long game, and the stakes are a lot higher. That's probably not a nice answer, but that I would think is him towing the line that Yoda and Obi-Wan laid out for him in Empire.
I kind of get the impression with these films that I know they go into the minutiae of the nuances of depth when they're fathoming all these things out. When you're kind of producing and directing and writing a film with hundreds of thousands of people involved, things do get kind of lost. And, there are going to be bits like this that aren't picked up, and the fleshing out of the travelling, and, in particular with the travelling, we've mentioned before another scene where Han's dead, and it appears like no one cares.
Yeah.
And then they're taking off, and Chewie's almost laughing, and they're back to normal. But like that bit could have been dealt with better. They could have shown a couple of weeks had passed while they fitted out or repaired the Falcon, because it did crash land essentially.
Yeah, true.
And I think those kind of things, it's important that they're not missed, because even though you need to have that, like you say, that swift momentum of a film, and to keep it the edge of your seat kind of stuff, but you can still do these things, change people's outfits, say, oh, it's been 2 weeks now, how are you feeling? Little, maybe one line just to make people feel like Han's death wasn't brushed over.
Yeah.
So I get what he's talking about.
That is a line they walk. The changing of the costumes, that would be an easy way to indicate a change in timeline. But there will be audience members that say, "Hang on a minute, she wasn't wearing that a minute ago."
Yeah. But then you change the time of day as well, don't you?
And that's difficult to do when they're in space. So
you make his hair a bit longer, so he's like, oh, his hair's grown a bit.
They're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. And
yeah, but the trouble is when you're taking it apart like we do, all these things come up. They need to start listening to our podcast.
They will.
Then they wouldn't make any mistakes.
I think they will listen at some point. But this whole thing with Luke coming out of hiding, I don't know if you remember. A long time. Do you remember there was that image from? We know now that it was Finn that was laying with the leather jacket, and Rey was crouching next to him, and you kept thinking you could see an ear. Do you remember that? And she was sort of bathed in white light,
and it looked white, didn't it?
Yeah,
we didn't think it was Finn.
And it turned out to be her finger. Well, at that point, I was starting to think that Luke was going to turn up like Gandalf the White and save the day.
Yes,
and it was kind of at the time this question that Chris has asked about. Why didn't we see Luke swing into action and save people? That was kind of what I was expecting. So I was thinking along the lines that Chris is thinking now before I saw the movie. And after I saw the movie and I realised how judicious they were being with the use of Luke, it just made sense to me that there was no way he was going to do the Gandalf the White thing, because the Jedi way seems to be hide until you can be of use.
Be sensible.
Be sensible, yeah. And don't tip your hand if you're gonna if like it's gonna cost too much. Like a wuss. Yeah. I'd like a Jedi wuss. Anyway, thanks for that, Chris.
Brilliant that was.
That was a good one.
We'll give it some more thought.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the last one, or are you happy to do it, or?
I'll do it if you want. How you doing with your hiccups?
Give me a chance to mute you for a sec, mute myself, and hiccup the hell out of it.
Right, this is Connor Corner. So we've got our regular email contributor, Connor, and he listens with Leo, his son.
We love Connor.
We love Connor. So,
and Leo.
This week's, I like Leo. He's never actually personally written in, so I'm going to withhold my love for the time being.
But we'll love him when he writes in.
Yeah, Connor, who did take the time to write in, said, good day, gents. Yet another question / jumping off point for you to discuss. When Poe fires a shot at Kylo and the beam is stopped mid-flight, which is awesome, Poe can't believe what he's seeing. Then he says to Kylo Ren, who talks first? You talk first, or do I talk first?
I like that.
And Connor's speculating that that's been done in a I'm not afraid of you manner by Poe. What I've taken from Poe's flippancy is, I know who you are and you don't scare me. Is Poe oblivious to how much stronger Kylo Ren has gotten since his departure? I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Keep up the good work, gents. The show gets better and better each week. May the force be with you, Connor. Okay.
I'll be with you, and you too, mate.
All right, I've broken that down.
Yes,
Not that we
did.
needed to break it down that much into one question. Would Poe know who Kylo Ren is? And if so, is Poe underestimating how Kylo Ren has grown in power since they last met? Or is this line just bravado?
I think he 100% knows who he is, whether it's a first person, like in person, or from rumor, or from pictures on his wall. He knows who he is, and he's obviously not intimidated by him. Why is the really interesting question? Because he doesn't care at all. I mean, even if you saw him with that mask and with a massive, great smoking red fiery lightsaber, you would be bricking it.
Yeah.
So even either he knows him from Luke's academy somehow. Maybe Luke and Poe are sort of friend, not friends, but acquainted is the word. In some way, and maybe he has met him before, like when he was younger. I know Poe's not that very old at all, but yeah, there's some really interesting ideas there.
That's a really interesting point of view as well, Steve, because I hadn't considered those things. I think we're about to find out. A book came out today called Star Wars Bloodline, which is set after Return of the Jedi. I think it's about 6 years before The Force Awakens, and it's mainly telling Leia's story and the rise of the First Order. So we should see some of what happens to Kylo Ren or what happens to Ben Solo in this story. So I started reading it today, and it's so far so awesome.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've only had one reference to Ben so far.
Are these sanctioned by Disney, these books?
Yeah.
Okay. So is like, is official
all,
what's happened.
It's all tightly woven in now. There's a group of people, they call themselves a story group. It's Kiri Hart, Pablo Hidalgo, you've heard me talk about him before. And they tie in with all the script writers and everything. So they, at any given time, somebody there with this intricate knowledge of what these characters have done, so that when a writer says, "Can they do this?" they say no, because that breaks the continuity, or they have to do this by this point.
Can I just say, I want that job?
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? I'm really envious. But this story has been pieced together by these people. It's written by an author named Claudia Gray, and she spent time with Rian Johnson, so he's had input as well, because he's written the last two chapters. So he's written episode 8 and episode 9, so he can tell her where everything's going to go, and she can start seeding those ideas in this story. So far we've only had one. I'm not very far into the book, but so far we've only had one reference to Ben. And if this is 6 years before The Force Awakens, spoilers now for Bloodline, for the first few chapters of Bloodline. So if you're going to read it, jump ahead like 15 or 30 seconds. Han Solo and Leia are still together.
Okay. What, 24 years after Jedi?
Yeah.
Right.
So everything that goes bad at that point. So we've got a 6-year period where things are going to go off the rails.
Sure. Which is about right when you think of how their kind of estrangement when they got back together in Awakens. It seemed to be around a few years, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they'd been separated for too long, no. But it does. This whole thing that Connor's written is absolutely fascinating. It's a question I hadn't thought to ask at this point.
Well, the other thing,
who knows who Kylo Ren is?
Yeah, and I just missed the bit about what Connor said about the bolt being in midair, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that is pivotal because he wouldn't be going, "Oh my god, I've never seen a blaster bolt." He's seen millions of them.
Yeah,
I think Connor's right. I think he's shocked as to what Kylo can do.
Yeah. So, okay. So what does that mean about Poe's
involvement.
attitude towards. Because if we say if we come down, I'm still not sure, but if we come down on the side that Poe knows that Kylo Ren is Ben Skywalker, then is he showing all this stuff like who talks first? You talk first. He's being really flippant.
Incidental, yeah.
Is it because he's underestimating Kylo Ren? This is the crux of Connor's question. Is Poe underestimating Ben Skywalker by talking to him that way?
Yeah.
Is he?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he being brave in front of? He's being flippant in front of Kylo Ren or Ben, as he'll know. If we say he knows that he's Ben Skywalker, is he being that way in front of him? That being that confident in front of him because he thinks you're not powerful, you're not going to amount to anything, or is it just bravado? Because
maybe it's Poe's character that they wanted to make him not. You've seen how he flies.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He's
brave.
He's not scared to
He's
die.
a hero.
Maybe that is just the character. Maybe he has no involvement.
And he's a pilot. He's cocky.
Maybe he doesn't even know who he is.
Well, this would be my answer. To answer Connor's question from my point of view, I would say no, I don't think Poe knows who Kylo Ren is. That might change when I've read Bloodline, obviously. But at this point now, with the information I've got to go on, I don't think he knows that Kylo Ren is Ben Skywalker at all. And I think that what we're seeing is just bravado. He's just a cocky pilot. And it doesn't matter how you could put a great white shark in front of the guy, and I still think that he would act that way because he's a courageous hero. He's the other side of the Phasma character from the question earlier on, where she folded like a deck of cards under the slightest bit of pressure. He's just going to dig in and say, look, what's the worst you can do to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Well, isn't there... Okay, so at the beginning of Awakens, Kylo Ren knows who Poe is. They know he's got the BB unit, and the BB unit has the map, right?
They piece that together.
But so is it not logical to say that he's been chasing Poe and BB and subsequently the map for some time?
Possibly, but I think it's more about... I think the Empire turning up... Well, sorry, I've got to get used to it. The First Order turning up on Jakku is more to do with Max von Sydow's character.
Yeah.
It's more to do with Lor San Tekka and the Church of the Force.
It just so happens that Poe's there.
And this is what we kind of touched on this last week. I think that because the First Order have tracked down Lor San Tekka and the Church of the Force, and he's the best lead the First Order will have to Luke, that's when Lor San Tekka thought, I need help. So he's reached out to the Resistance and said, get someone to me, I've got something you need. And then he gives Poe the map and says, now go, because he knows he's about to die. He knows they're all screwed. And that, again, is the courage that's missing from the dark side, because they don't have the belief in what they're doing the way the heroes do. The heroes firmly believe that what they're doing is right and they're willing to die for it. That's what I think we're seeing here in Poe. I think we're seeing courage and defiance in the face of Kylo Ren, and it doesn't matter. I don't think he knows he's Ben Solo. I think that he's just a courageous hero. We're meant to believe that
he just doesn't care.
He'll deal with him like that because he can.
Well, he's just seen all the villagers get killed, so he's probably thinking, you know what, screw you, I'm going to go out.
If that's the way I'm going to go, that's the way I'm going to go.
Yeah, although it's all open. There are, it wouldn't surprise me.
No.
And of course, these things can be written in, even if that wasn't their intention in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, we might see the bloodline might deal with the fact that Poe and Ben are childhood friends and they grew up together, and because Leia's family are connected to Poe's family. We know that from a previous book.
Well, for all we know, Poe was one of Luke's.
It could have been,
and that's why he can fly so well, because he's force sensitive.
Yeah,
like Luke could
be,
but he just never panned out, and he didn't choose that, to go down the Jedi route.
Yeah, we'll definitely see more of it now. I think in Bloodline, I think there'll be a bit more. And by the time people are hearing this, I'll probably be a considerable way through that book, so my position may have changed. So I might have to go in and edit it.
Are all these books getting made into films?
No,
but potentially
they're just fillers.
Potentially they could, though, right?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know why they would need to. They're doing a really good job of having these things play out in different mediums, because you've got like your standalone Star Wars movies, you've got your enumerated Star Wars movies, you've got the Battlefront game, and then there's a series of stories that spun out of the Battlefront game. I can't think what it's called now. Twilight Company, I think it's called. And then you've got all these other books that are really firmly locked into canon. I just read one this week because of what we spoke about last week with Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which is a video. I put it up as a video on YouTube in the end. I read a book called The Perfect Weapon, and I read it just as research, really, for the theory that I'd put out about Kylo's lightsaber actually having the crystal from Darth Vader's lightsaber in it. And I think I'm right.
Okay.
And I think the book supports that, and that's probably why it's called The Perfect Weapon. And the answer was right there in front of us. But yeah, these books are fantastic, and there's loads of them coming.
Thing is, without coming away from the fiction, which is what we're all about, they're never going to make their $5 billion back from books. With the greatest respect to the writers, it just hasn't got the same. You're talking tens of millions rather than billions.
Yeah.
So I'm just, and I know we've touched on what's coming up. You hear like Marvel. They've listed how many films now till 20. I mean, it's ridiculous. What is it?
No, right up to 2020, isn't it?
And how many films? I think we've still got 9 to go, right?
There's a whole phase full of films to go.
So why aren't they? Or maybe they are, but why haven't they given us the level of excitement about just how much we've got to look forward to? Because we only really know about 4 more, don't we?
Yeah, they're deliberately pacing themselves, because one of these things can very easily consume the other. And we're seeing it right now, and this is because it's still very early days yet, and people haven't quite gotten used to what's going on. We know it because we're steeped in it, but a general audience won't understand when Rogue One comes out that it isn't a sequel to The Force Awakens. People just won't understand that, casual moviegoers. So they need to get used to the idea that you'll get a Skywalker film, and then you'll get something that's completely independent, and then you get another Skywalker, and once we start to build up to that, and everyone understands the rhythm of Star Wars movie releases, then I think you'll start to see projections out years down the line of what's coming. And then also, obviously, you have to lock in all the talent. So at the moment, we know Rogue One's all but done, and we know that they're getting somewhere with the Han Solo. We've got a piece of Han Solo movie news here coming up. But they haven't locked an actor down yet. They've got the directors, but they haven't locked down an actor. And we don't even know what the next standalone film is, because it was Josh Trank was the director, and that's as much as we knew. And then he left, and no one's replaced him. We've got Ewan circling the idea of an Obi-Wan series of films, but nothing's been locked down yet. So everyone's playing this game very responsibly. They can't just say, yeah, we're going to do these Obi-Wan movies, and then Ewan McGregor say, no, I'm not interested, because then it becomes infinitely harder to do it, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
I think once they hit their stride, we'll start to see these projections out a few years. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Connor, again for another superb question. Really got me thinking that
very
one.
Enlightening. I was just I scrolled down to one of your
news
exclusive bits. Photos links.
Yes.
And I went in early from the Daily Mail has got some, and I was just looking at those workmen working on the back of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, it's amazing.
God, what a job that would be!
Isn't it just?
I'd be like, if I was working on the Millennium Falcon as a contractor, I'd be like, no, that one goes there, that one goes
every
there.
day. When you're sitting there with your cup of milky tea and your bacon roll, and you've got your co-worker just constantly doing that line.
And you'd be dripping your digested biscuits on the back of the Millennium Falcon. Doesn't seem right. And then they've made the massive faux pas, the Daily Mail. Here you can see the famous aircraft next to a huge set which closely resembles the world that Ray, played by Daisy Ridley, visited at the end of last summer's Star Wars 7.
Last summer.
Oh my God.
Egypt.
Idiot. Yeah, sorry, I'm back on track now. I just saw that picture. I thought, oh, I've got to go and have a look at that.
Okay, well, we'll catch up to that in just a sec. Let's get through a couple of these other news points anyway. So, quick thing on Star Wars Celebration. We haven't even gotten to this one, and they've already announced the next one. So, Star Wars Celebration 2017 will be in Orlando between the 13th and the 16th of April next year. Tickets go on sale on the 25th of May, which is the 39th anniversary of the release of A New Hope. That's pretty cool. I don't think we'll be at that one.
I take it that's to coincide with the opening of the new Disney Star Wars thing.
I don't know if the parks are going to open.
Well, it's interesting that it's in Orlando.
It is, yeah. Maybe they'll have something. That's a good point, Steve. Maybe they'll have something, but I'm pretty sure that I've heard that 2019 was the opening date for that, but I can't be sure at this point in time.
Okay.
Pretty cool, though. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
So, this year is going to be... This celebration is going to be Rogue One heavy, with probably a little bit about Episode 8. So next year's is going to be all Episode 8 all the time, isn't it?
And, I mean, we're not that far from a teaser for Episode 8, right? We could do, like, the next few months.
Well, they're halfway through production now, so there could... We might actually see something.
That would be awesome.
We got that one little snippet, didn't we, of Luke and Rey on the island. And even that just gave me chills.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Because this one's going to... I believe that this one is going to re-evoke my childhood. The first one nearly did after a few watches.
Yeah.
But it wasn't... The romance isn't quite there yet.
Well, when we get to talk about those photographs in the Daily Mail, there's a couple of things in there that I think will either fill your heart with joy or make you feel very sad. But we'll get there in a minute.
Well, they can't kill Han twice.
They can't. No, they can't do that twice. That sin's done, isn't it? So there you go. Celebration next year in Orlando. Get your tickets 25th of May. One piece of the Force Awakens news still trickles out a little bit at a time. Somebody did a comparison of a shot from the trailer to the shot from the final movie, and realised that some of the flags that were hanging outside Maz's castle had been altered from the trailer shots to the finished movie, and they'd removed any references to the prequels. So removed. There was a banner outside for Anakin.
Oh, for the podcast.
It was for the pod race.
The pod race.
Yeah, Anakin's podcast. Yeah. So they'd removed that. There's quite a lot of changes there. Do you think? I mean, there's a lot being made of the fact that JJ apparently didn't want any prequel connections in his movie. Do you think there's a bit of that?
Well, I've always said that, haven't I? My gut feeling is, and I'm standing by it, that one day they are going to remake them. And I'm standing by it. They need money. They're a business. They've got 3 films which are already fleshed out. They have the stories for them. They have the characters. They just will remove some of the politics, most of the politics, and make it more, actiony and less rubbish, basically. And I reckon they'll throw them together. And why not?
I'd
go and watch them.
I know you'd go and watch them. I think it's just, what we were saying about the story group and how careful they're being about making sure that all of these things weave together nice and neatly, and they're really robust and there's no holes. They're being so protective over the storytelling and the canon. I don't think that they'd go back and remake those films and undo it. First, it would be hugely insulting to George Lucas. No matter how much better those films could be, it would be hugely insulting. Which is...
Did you not think George Lucas sits there and go, kind of drop the...
No, because I think that he was giving us precisely what he wanted us to see. And in all honesty, if he had all the time in the world and all the money in the world back in 1977, the Star Wars we got would have been very different. It would have been more in line with what we saw in the prequels, I think.
Maybe money made him bad.
Well, I think the lack of money made him good. Is more to the point, because he had to make compromises on those early films that he wouldn't have to make today if he was doing it. I don't necessarily think that this whole changing of this flag line up outside Maz's castle qualifies as prequel bashing. I think that some of that was probably just concepts, quickly roughed out shots to get something into the trailer, and then they had time to go back and say, why don't we take this out because it's a little bit too obvious, and we'll take that out because it's a little bit too distracting. You know, maybe you don't want people looking up and seeing Boba Fett's Mandalorian Death's Head or whatever it is, and have them say, oh look, there's that, when they should be paying attention to what Harrison Ford's saying as Han Solo at that point in time, you know. I think it's more about that and less about the prequel bashing. But I wouldn't get your hopes up about them remaking the prequels because I don't see it happening. So moving into our Rogue One, a Star Wars story section, Mads Mikkelsen, last week, just before we recorded, Mads Mikkelsen went off on one. I think it was last week. He went off on one and started giving away all sorts of secrets. Did you see this? Where he said he confirmed he played Felicity Jones's dad in a movie. He said he played Jyn Erso's father. Well, he's at it again. He came out this week. He was talking to The Standard online, and he said, this is an excerpt from their thing. When asked if Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, or members of the original trilogy had joined the cast on set, he told The Standard, as in Mads Mikkelsen, told The Standard, some of them, but I wouldn't reveal too much. There are iconic characters. There are iconic characters in this film, and also characters you have never heard of. It's a mix. I think Mads Mikkelsen is reasonably unfamiliar with Star Wars. I don't think he's big. I don't think he'd seen Star Wars before he was cast in Rogue One, and he didn't seem, in the interview that he had with Sky, he didn't seem to really understand where Star Wars, where Rogue One fits within Star Wars canon. So when he spoke to Kay Burley on Sky News, he said, "This is the first Star Wars movie." In one breath, he said, "This is the first Star Wars movie before anything else you've seen," and then in another breath, he said, "Well, this is the film between Episode 7 and 8." Which it is in terms of the release schedule, but I think the implication from what he was saying was that he meant narratively. Yeah. So I don't think we should take too much of what he says seriously. But if obviously Mark and Carrie aren't going to join the cast as their characters because they were just kids. This is before A New Hope, so there's no way they're going to be cast. But I think there is room to suggest that someone's going to be cast to play Peter Cushing's role, and maybe that's what he's talking about. But I don't think he'd really know that, to be honest.
No, but if they do have somebody playing Peter Cushing's character, and they're a good a match as Mon Mothma is, then awesome.
Yeah, I mean that was fantastic bit of casting, wasn't it? He also made the comment that this is something he said when he was asked to comment on his experience making the film. I spend a lot of time with Felicity Jones. She's a wonderful actress. I play her dad at the time of Felicity, and I play her dad when she's younger. So we jump back and forth in time. So what I think he's saying is we hear in the trailer that she's been on her own since she was 15. So he is obviously in the story as her father in the current timeline, but they will be estranged, and then he plays her father when the character of Jyn is younger and clearly played by a younger actress. So we're going to flop backwards and forwards through the timeline, seeing them and their story and their history together. So I'm less convinced now that he's the guy in the cloak from what we're hearing him say here. It doesn't seem to me like...
Doesn't fit now.
I'm not sure, really. We'll see. But MakingStarWars.net had some hints about Mads Mikkelsen's costume. They say he wears earth tones in the film, and there's a shot of him in an impressive golden-coloured field. I wonder if it's that planet where we see the guy in the white cloak walking through that little river.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, there's where he's dragging his cloak through the water.
Oh yes,
Yeah, do you remember that?
Well, isn't that a crash scene though?
But it's a battlefield, isn't it? So there's
Yeah,
tons
and
of
that
stuff
isn't. I assumed that was the same planet where the 80 AT-ATs were.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. Well, we haven't got long to go until we find out.
No, I'm actually really excited about this film. We'll be getting a full-on trailer soon, won't we?
Yeah. Have you read ahead? Have you seen this next thing from Jason Ward over at MakingStarWars.net?
No.
He has. I should probably say here actually.
Oh, with the Darth Vader bit.
Yeah, there's going to be some spoilery stuff for Rogue One coming up. So if you're gun shy, you might not want to listen to this bit. Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net has seen the Darth Vader costume for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. He stopped short of stating that Vader will be in the movie, but says he's seen the costume and it was on the new actor Spencer Wilding, and it looks great. It's very much Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope in style, with the Widow's Peak, the red lenses, and the tunic being worn over the shoulder plate armor. Now,
can I say something here?
Yeah, go on, mate.
Vader's outfit hasn't changed at all since he first put it on.
There's been some subtle changes.
Yeah, but it is essentially because when he puts it on at the end of Episode 3, it's pretty much a shiny, non-scratched version of the later. It's the same, for all intents and purposes, the same outfit down to the buttons and everything.
When you see, pretty much, essentially it is. I think when you see the one in Rogue One, you'll see the differences, like with the scale of the helmet compared to the rest of the uniform. Because if you look at the Empire version, I think the helmet's much smaller in scale. And it makes him look wider.
Yeah, but they're all for the purposes of a shot in the film rather than
because the one in I'm going to brag a little bit now, so forgive me, but not brag.
What about your helmet?
No, not about my helmet. But the one in A New Hope, I've actually been face to face with that very thing.
Really?
In the
that's like standing in front of Tutankhamun's mask.
It was a very moving experience for me. It was. I was fortunate enough to go to Lucasfilm, and I was in the lobby at Lucasfilm, and they've got the armour there.
Wow.
And I stood right in front of it, and I'm a little bit shorter than he was, not by much.
And a bit darker.
I was staring right at this thing, and all the highlights, like he's got silver cheek, and part of they've painted the highlights on to the mask.
Oh, you mean the reflections?
Yeah, the reflections. It's absolutely stunning. I think what I might do is I've taken a photograph of it. I might put that photograph on this week's cover art, so you can see the highlights, the silver parts of the mask are actually painted on, and then I didn't have to have a shiny mask that would reflect cameras.
I'd like to see that.
Awesome.
I'm surprised you didn't send you were sharing a photo journal with us, weren't you?
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that one.
It is in there.
Okay.
One thing I must say about the story I've just read about Jason saying he's seen the armour. This evening he confirmed that.
Okay.
He confirmed that, in fact, Vader will be in Rogue One, and it was the armour that he saw.
And it's kind of a given anyway, isn't it?
It is, but
you've got to have Vader in it if it's a prequel to A New Hope. I mean,
just a little bit of a humble brag as well. One of the articles that Jason spoke about in his article in his piece this evening was from November, when he ran with a piece that I wrote on Talk Star Wars.
Okay.
Where I'd found that Brian Muir had joined the crew of Rogue One, and Brian is the guy that first sculpted the Darth Vader mask. And
you knew they brought him in.
I knew that I'd seen it on his Facebook page saying I started work on Rogue One, so I'd written an article about it and I put it out there saying I think this is before anyone had even mentioned Vader being in Rogue One. And I wrote a piece and put it out. It's one of the first things I put out on Talk Star Wars, and said I think Vader's going to be in Rogue One, because you don't bring Brian Muir in to the project unless you're going to do Darth Vader, because that's a waste of resources. Because if you have him around and you don't do something with Darth Vader with that guy, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And Jason actually used that article in a piece on the site, and they reposted that tonight. So I'm quite pleased with that.
Yeah. Here, what am I doing? Vader's mask? No, you're doing Neon Numb.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Can you turn this washing up liquid bottle into a pew pew laser gun? Another thing for MakingStarWars.net. You're going to like this, Steve, because this goes back to something we've been talking about for weeks. MakingStarWars.net have confirmed that it is Anakin/Vader in that tank repairing himself in that one shot in the Rogue One trailer. The back to tank. They also claim that Vader will receive new limbs in this section of the film.
New robotic limbs?
New robotic limbs. That he will be damaged in a battle of some sort, and this will be in Act 2 of the movie. And he will be repairing himself in that back to tank. And that's why he's got the guards with him. So it's pretty much what we'd been speculating since we first saw the trailer. They don't address who the cloaked guy is. And it certainly seems as though that isn't going to be Mads Mikkelsen's character now, seeing as he seems to be Jin's father, who we'd heard earlier on was the guy that helped build the Death Star. So my money now is on an Inquisitor, which we have seen in Star Wars Rebels, so I reckon it's probably just one of those.
Isn't it going to be nice that we've got a prequel now that it hopefully will be really good?
It does look really good.
And we can watch a prequel to A New Hope, and then watch New Hope, and then Empire, and then Return of the Jedi, and then Episode 7.
And you'll be pretending none of the other films happened.
No, because I'm going to rename A New Hope as in Episode 2. The Rogue One will be Episode 1. Empire will be 3. Return of the Jedi 4, and then 5 and 6.
Now, a lesser man than I would say you're onto something there. that Rogue One might be the way a prequel should have been made, eh?
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean that's why I think they're going to be shot if they get this marketing thing sorted out where they're not bloody selling it the right way. I think they will realise they're onto something and they will go back further. And there is no limits now.
No, that's right.
From the chronology, you kind of had to do things historically in film where you did in numerical order, but they're going to realise that it doesn't matter what order you do stuff in. You can go and flit all over the place as long as it all makes sense and fits together. Yeah,
exactly. As long as the audience learns that is the way you're telling your stories, and they should, because that's the way Star Wars stories have always been told, massively out of continuity.
So, I mean, if people can understand Memento and get that, I mean, that is a brain strain.
It is a noodle bake, that film, yeah.
It is. But if you can get that, then, cracky, people, they don't give people who watch film enough credit.
No, this is always the problem, and everybody else suffers because the filmmakers want to treat those few people in the audience that are stupid with kid gloves. And then the rest of us all get shortchanged, unfortunately.
Yeah, but even the people who want a bit of candy, bubblegum for the eyes, they're still appeased by a good sci-fi film, and they don't really care about the story. But I reckon they'll look at one before Rogue One even, and they might open Rogue One with an ending of something you're not fully aware of. That would be how awesome would that be?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of, what's that all about? I want to know about that as well.
And will we go back to see that? Will it have an opening crawl?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
If it has an opening crawl that hints to something else.
I don't want a beginning in Rogue One. I want it to pick up from the middle of something.
Well, that is Star Wars storytelling style. That is, you come in halfway through. You always come in. It's a bit like Bond and Indy. You come in halfway through the end of the previous adventure, almost. Yeah. Yeah. So it's undoubtedly that's the way that's going to go. But it would be nice to see if they do nod backwards at things that have already happened, and that might be fertile ground for them to then go back and tell more stories. That's really exciting.
Oh, I'm more excited about Rogue One than I was about 7.
Yeah.
Point, I must say.
Well, let's get excited about Episode 8 now with a silky segue into these photographs you were talking about.
Yes, these are awesome. We put these links in. you haven't seen them, they are fantastic.
Yeah, well, they're actually on the site. I'll put them up on the site in a nice
I
little
knew that because
slideshow
I
as
read
well.
the site every day.
Of course
I
you
knew
do,
that.
religiously. So if you don't know what we're talking about, the Daily Mail ran a set of really stunning drone photos of the Arc 2 set at Pinewood Studios.
Are these illegal drone photos?
They probably should. I don't think they've been sanctioned by Disney. But I also think that Rian Johnson's got a much more open door policy on his movie than JJ had towards The Force Awakens. So they're not in any effort. They're not making great efforts to take these things down.
I'm going in now. I'm going in.
I don't think you can really spoil this stuff for people because they're just on it, aren't they? We're into it.
Yeah, there are some amazing shots though.
So what we've got is we've got aerial photography of the Arc 2 set. Reportedly, the Arc 2 set anyway.
Although I don't remember seeing that tree.
It wasn't there, and that's the big thing that I wanted to talk to you about because I'm willing to bet that they've moved. I think that Arc 2 is the planet, and we saw One Little Island, didn't we?
No, we saw hundreds of islands, but
yeah,
it kind of focused on one, didn't it?
Yes, and I wonder whether or not that's where Luke lives, that island that Daisy meets him on, or Ray, I should say, meets him on. And have they moved to another island? Because there is a shot where you can see what looks like a building at the top of the stairs. Looks like a college. It looks like a contemporary building, which is a bit jarring.
Yeah,
that environment.
It's not. There's nothing sort of cave-like or anything about it at all. Is
it's
there?
really quite sophisticated.
From rock. It's very, very sort of modern.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, Steve, that tree, that gnarly old tree that's sitting there, that wasn't. I went back and checked.
And it's not there.
That wasn't in that scene.
Are they two separate sets, those? Or are we to assume that entrance is at the top of that flight of steps? Or are they two separate sets?
But are you talking about the Daily Mail shots?
Yes.
No, I think they're... Well, I don't know. Let's see if we can see. I don't know. Cause...
It could just be... they film it at certain angles, so you can't see the other anything in the a car park or whatever.
And then they can replace it with a digital matte paint. That's a really good point.
And they hang green screen everywhere. Don't they?
I was just reading it as the Millennium Falcon's parked in the staff car park of this Jedi Academy, and you walk up the steps, and then you're there. Maybe there's a little Starbucks there. You pick up your Java the Hutt before you go in. I don't know, but you could be right. This could be two sets that we're looking at, couldn't it? Yeah,
I think it is. And from the other shot, it looks like there's no. It kind of the green and rocky bit just ends.
Yeah,
and then there's So I think it is two shots.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. I hadn't picked up on that.
So it could even be that that's actually on another planet and nothing to do with this.
True.
Depending on what angle they film it from.
That's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's blown that wide open, that is. But let's talk about this tree, because this is what I was hinting at earlier when I said there's something that you might not like. Is this tree going to be like a dark side thing? And she's going to have the sort of challenge that the sort of trial that Luke had on Dagobah, where she's dealing with a dark side tree, and she's going to have a vision.
Well, does the path go up to the tree and end? It does, doesn't it?
Seems to.
So yeah, that kind of adds weight to what we've just said about the other set. Then, because that actually from that side shot, where it says little was known about the plot to the next chapter of the galaxy-spanning saga. There's a side shot of the Falcon on the right, the steps, and the tree on the left, and you can see there's all jagged rocks to the left of the tree, so it's impassable.
Yeah.
And the steps actually go up to the tree and end at the tree, so it's obviously significant.
Yeah, this could be something. This could be a trial for her, couldn't it?
And it is a hideous. It's what it makes me immediately think of, the tree out of Poltergeist.
Yeah, me too.
But it's a bloody. And I scared the life out of me when I was young. It looks like there might be a little entrance around the back of it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
which would be kind of cool. Yeah, I think it is organic, isn't it? It's not like designed to look like a tree, but it looks like the hilt of Kylo's sword.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it does. There's all that symbolism because his Star Destroyer, the Finalizer, looked like that as well, didn't it?
Tip.
Yeah,
and also, Kylo does, when he uses protection, his condoms do have
3 pieces
on the top.
That's not
for her pleasure.
That is not appropriate for a family podcast.
I went too far. I thought we were in the dark side already.
Yeah, not quite. No.
But yeah, there's some fantastic stuff.
Some great images.
There's no way the Millennium Falcon would have survived the crash being made out of plywood like that.
No, it's not.
It's never going to work.
Especially with all the tea and bacon grease on it.
How much can we get together? We need to buy a bit of land. Half an acre will do us, and then we need to build a Falcon.
And build it, yeah.
If we build it, we will come, and no one else will screw them. It's ours.
They will. It will make a great YouTube series, wouldn't it? Building a full-size Falcon.
No one's done that. We are owning that.
All right, we're on it. Copyright Mark and Steve.
Copyright. That's it.
Okay, you can head over to talkstars.co.uk and you'll find these images of the Millennium Falcon, and there's a link there to the Daily Mail, which is where they started their life, so you can have a little look at those shots. They're quite impressive. And Steve, as always, you've given me something to think about there, that these might be 2 separate sets and not one thing that we're looking at, which is,
I think they are.
Give me fresh perspective. I'm going to have a little mull over those again later. Okay. What else have we got from... Oh, we're on to Han Solo news. So that's everything we've had for episode 8, really. Han Solo news. Will Jabba the Hutt be in the Han Solo movie? Randy from MakingStarWars.net said they should do a Jabba the Hutt puppet, but then animate the face like they did with Unkar Plutt in The Force Awakens, which I thought was a genius idea. Yeah. Absolutely genius.
Make him practical again.
You definitely got to have Jabba the Hutt in a Han Solo film.
Oh, didn't he look bad in episode 1? Oh my God, he looked awful, didn't he?
He looked bad in episode 1, but not as bad as he looked in the special edition of...
Yeah, but that I don't... when he was talking to Han by the...
Yeah, but in Docking Bay 94.
It was there was no perspective. They had to work with such...
Dreadful.
Because he was supposed to be a person, wasn't he, Jabba the Hutt? He was supposed to be a humanoid.
Yes, yeah.
And they had to squeeze this 400-ton slug in the space that a human would be and try and get Harrison Ford to be looking at it. It just didn't work. It was awful. It was cringeworthy.
It was just dreadful.
If you go on YouTube and have a look at it, you will find it on YouTube. Anyone who's interested.
Yeah.
It was cringeworthy moment, bad time.
But I think there's plenty of room now to bring Jabba back and drop him into this Han Solo standalone film, because you got to tell that story, right? You got to tell that story
of in the money.
Exactly. There's so much to explore there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like the idea of them doing the Unkar Plutt thing to give that face that extra bit of animation.
Sure.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That. And sorry, Unkar Plutt being Simon Pegg's character.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just making sure I got my.
Because that was a blend of. It actually had like a heavy latex.
Yeah, and the lips were CGI, weren't they?
And his eyes as well. They just augmented the practical makeup.
Because it did look
digital bits and pieces.
Was that practical? I couldn't decide. And it was both.
It's good, right? That's the way you should. That's the way we should be. Last bit of news for the evening. Then yesterday, Chris Miller posted. Chris Miller being one of the directors. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are directing the Han Solo film. Yesterday, Chris Miller posted an image of Han Solo's DL-44 blaster, which was laying on... There's a link there, Steve, for an image. I don't know if you've seen it.
I'm just on it now.
It's resting on a console, which looks suspiciously like part of the Millennium Falcon to me. That's the first...
Yeah, that's not Imperial artwork, is it?
No, I don't think so.
That's an old...
Because it's shabby.
Yeah,
and the Falcon, I think, has those control panels on with the little white pinstripe around all the buttons.
Yeah, I mean, those buttons, that's not a good idea. None of them are labelled.
Yeah, you've got to really know your ship.
Yeah. And then they've got a cribbage board.
I put that. I sent that photograph out. I put that photograph out yesterday on Instagram, and Kyle from Tumbling Sober and I were having a back and forth over it, and he'd done a lot of research into where that could be on the Millennium Falcon, and he determined that it's not in the cockpit because he'd had a 360 tour. I think it's on Star Wars Facebook page. You can do a 360 thing where you move your phone and your guided view around the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon.
Now,
there's nothing on the Falcon that matches it.
On the hilt of that DL-44, is that a Phillips screw head?
I think it is, yeah, because it's a
they
German
really are
pistol.
Universal, aren't they? Those things.
Yeah,
everyone's using Phillips.
Even in galaxies far, far away.
They've realised that's probably why the first Death Star blew up, because it was flathead screws.
or those Allen key screws, those security screws.
Yeah, the next one they said, look, I want Phillips screws all the way through this, no more of those flathead ones. They'll be undoing it with a kitchen knife like everyone else, it'll fall apart.
Our Han Solo news sort of brings us to the end of our thing. Next week we'll be back with Rob. Thanks for listening to the podcast again this week, people. Don't forget to reach out to us on all the social media platforms and via email with any questions or comments or theories you've got. Keep them coming, because it stimulates a lot of conversation.
Well, they're giving us stuff to, obviously we're not every week. We're
making us think.
We're finding stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's making me think a lot about these things, because there's people are picking up on stuff in The Force Awakens that I just didn't even look twice at. I was just skated straight past it and moved on to the next thing. And
please don't think we know every bit of news that's out there. If you find something that's incidental that you think is, a bit out there that no one really knows about, send it to us, and we'd definitely love to have a look. Yeah, we'd love some more Brian Muir Shape exclusives as well. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Right, Steve, where can people find you between shows, mate? Well, I've started posting on my Calastine YouTube channel again, Calastine on YouTube, Calastine. And I'm hopefully, I don't know for sure, I've applied for a world record. Oh, have you? Yeah, I'm going to be making the most holes in an insect hotel. And in the last week, I've drilled 3,948 holes in wood. And yes, it hurts. And is that the record? No, I don't know what the record. I don't think there's a record. That's what I'm hoping. Oh, right, okay. Because then I'll be able to have that record. But it's only a bit of fun, and it's kind of, I want to draw attention to the plight of the bee and insects in general and stuff like that. So it's kind of I want to sort of get it out there, and world records are great. On people will look at them no matter what they're for. So. I'm making it now, but I'm doing a how-to video on that, and I've started doing videos again. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, they're not exciting videos. It's not like Star Wars, but they are interesting to some. So please subscribe. Please watch the adverts, because it all goes to charity, and click like on the videos and any comments and stuff. I'm more than happy to help. Yeah, what I've started doing actually, Steve, is when we put the video version of the podcast onto YouTube, I'm adding a card that links straight to your channel from there. People should see it about now. It'll pop up on the screen, and they can just click on it. It takes them straight to your channel. Fantastic. So they can subscribe. And I did actually spend, even though I hadn't had the check from YouTube or Google, I've spent the £15 that I've made in the last year on my channel and bought drills, which I've used those drills to drill the 4,000 holes. Well, there you go. It's the circle of life. Okay. Don't forget you can check out all of Rob's stuff at emotionally14, emotionally14.com. Is that .com? I don't know. There's a link in the show notes to this episode that will take you to our landing page, and then you can find all the links to everything we do right there. You'll find me on Twitter at TalkStarWars, and everything else I do is at talkstarwars.co.uk. We will be back next week with a fully loaded cast and hopefully tons more things to talk about. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.